nearly 2 months. I spent a bit over 6 weeks in North America, travelling around North America, where I'd made meetings with Lefty Kreh and Joan Wolfe and Bruce Richards and so on. I set up all these meetings with all these famous hero teachers with a view to sucking them dry. I'm trying to find out Joan Wolfe's way of teaching people to stay connected with the fly line.
G'day and welcome to another instalment of the Flyfishers podcast.
Since 1967, we've been spreading the bug of fly fishing at our Melbourne fly shop.
Join us as we celebrate the fun of fly fishing and chat with characters that enjoy it as much as we do.
Whether you're just starting out or have some experience, we hope our ego-free commentary helps demystify fly fishing and inspires you to visit new places and try new techniques.
Hazy, welcome to the podcast, mate. We've had you on a couple of our YouTube videos, and
yes,
so look, a lot of people got something out of those videos that we did with you. So thank you again for that. Obviously, you're a Tassie guide and casting instructor, but here we are sitting in Ballarat. What's the go? Why are we here?
Love. Love will do it every time. 15 years ago, I was with a partner, Anna, who lived in Ballarat, and we had a 5-year relationship, and it did end well, but it did end because Anna's kids were little and she had a job in Ballarat, and my kids were little and I had a business in Tasmania, and it couldn't be any different. So after 5 years of interstate relationship, lots of travelling, spending a lot of money on Jetstar and Qantas, we decided to go our separate ways. Then fast forward 13 years and Anna and I are back in each other's orbit again after, a variety of mixed success relationships. And we are picking up where we left off, 15 years ago. But the kids now are, all her kids and mine are grown up and left home. We're both empty nesters. Both our businesses are at different places, so there's more time for each other. And I think there's a recognition that we always were meant for each other. So for me, and I think Anna would say this too, it's some sort of love story that's fantastic.
No, that's fantastic, mate. And obviously you both got that passion for fly fishing as well.
Yeah, so I met Anna as a client 25 years ago when she came fishing with some other clients of mine, existing clients. But the time was wrong. Back then, she was married and I was married, and we were both thinking about having kids, but the time was wrong. So I've known her for actually a long time. And it's funny how time changes everything. And here we are.
Yeah.
So I can come to Ballarat to live in winter very easily. The trout season closes at the end of April. For all of May, I've got to sit in my distillery up in the Highlands and make whiskey and gin and ouzo. But at the end of May, I can come and live with Anna in Ballarat. So here I am until in this year, actually. Last year, if I go back a step, last year I had to go home about mid-October to start the guiding with regular clients. But this year, those regular clients, who are Melbourne and Sydney based, are coming to Ballarat for a change.
Oh, good.
So I'm staying in Ballarat this year until mid-November. And I've got 6 weeks guiding at the end of my casting circuit to guide people with my wooden drift boat on Wendouree.
Yeah. So you're certainly keeping busy while you're in Victoria. You mentioned there the casting instruction as well as the guiding. How does it look if someone is to book you for a casting instruction? How long does it go for?
Yeah. So if we go back a step, I started the guiding business 31 years ago. So this year will be my 32nd year. So very quickly I realised I needed something to do in winter because the guiding in Tasmania is only summer. So after a couple of years, I thought I'll do casting lessons. And the casting lessons, I remember the first one, a mate of mine had a radio slot on ABC talking fishing, and he wrote a fishing column in the local newspaper. And he said, I'll promote your casting classes for you. So for 2 months, he advertised my casting classes. And the first casting class, I remember, I drove all the way down off the mountain to Launceston. It was $100 for the day. And I only got 3 people in the casting class after, advertising for 2 months that you couldn't afford to pay for. If you pay for that advertising, I'd go backwards $1,000.
Yeah.
So I had 3 people come to the first class. Now, that was 31 years ago. I got home that night and my wife said to me, "How was today?" I said, "It was terrible. Like, I had 3 people for $100, $300. Probably cost me $100 in fuel to go down there, and I've spent all day standing in the cold.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. I've got to find some other job." Now, that night, I had 2 phone calls from mates of those people that said, "When is your next casting class?" And luckily for me, I said, "Look, the next one's fully booked out." Now, of course, I didn't have any next class. I wasn't going to do that. And I took their phone numbers and I said I'd ring them back. The next day I had 5 people ring up and say, "When's the next class?" So I told them the same thing. I said, "Look, I'm really sorry, the next couple are booked out." So when I got 8 people, I put on another date and we had $800 for the day, and that was the start of it.
Yeah.
So that next year I did those classes all around Australia, in Brisbane, Townsville, all over Australia, from Western Australia to Townsville. And I did 60 days of casting tuition with 8 people a day at $140 or something I charged them back then.
Yeah.
So I learnt to be a better instructor really quickly. In one season, one winter, I had so much experience at being an instructor, and I don't think anyone else in Australia was doing that back then. I think I was the first person. So I had it on my own for a number of years. Anyway, here we are 30 years on, and COVID changed everything. And before COVID, I'd stopped teaching casting around Australia and I was teaching casting overseas. So, I taught casting in South Africa and Japan and all over the place, Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Borneo, for God's sake, New Zealand, and in North America. So then COVID came and that was the end of the international travel, which I didn't mind because I was actually spending too much time away from home in winter. And there's no money in it. At the end of the day, by the time you pay your travelling expenses and airfares and accommodation stuff, there's nothing left. So I didn't mind COVID coming, and it changed things, and I focused on the distillery and some boat building. But now that Anna's back in my life and I'm back in Victoria over winter, I thought I'll start my casting school program again. So, and thanks to you and the Flyfisher sending out an email saying Hazy's in town, who wants a lesson, I've filled more or less 4 weeks solid every day, with a private lesson in the morning and a private lesson in the afternoon.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me it's gold, and I've worked with some different casting instructors and guides over the years, and what you offer and the way that you're able to articulate things is different. It is of an elite nature that you can't replicate. I think you're quite unique in that respect. And so when you said you were going to be in Victoria offering those casting lessons, it was, not just for me personally, but for anyone that's a part of our database or our customer base. I thought, shit, that's a golden opportunity for people that they should really jump on. And I'm glad that they have realised just how good that opportunity is, and you've been able to fill it up.
Well, thanks for pumping up the tyres. Right? And but I think I've been doing it too long. I've been doing it for 31 years, where my income's important. The bank manager doesn't like it if I have a month with no bloody income in winter. He's ringing me up. So I have to find something to do. So that it made sense that the casting instruction is vertically integrated from the guiding during the season. I started off working with the same people. Of course, the people I guided got an email from me to say, "Would you like casting lessons in your town?" So that's sort of how it started. And it grew from there because I had to become a good teacher. It was quite simple. I needed the income.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for a long time at a very high level. And, anyone else offering casting lessons to me is not a competitor. I do it differently. As you say, I do it my way, unique or not. It's just from more experience than anyone else because I'm bloody old.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for a long time.
I'm curious to hear more about your origin and getting into the fly fishing industry as well. Where were you born and raised?
I came from Tasmania, so I was born in Launceston. There's nothing wrong with that. Before you start talking about scars and second heads. And so I was born in Launceston, but I moved to Melbourne with my parents as a teenager, and we lived in Fairfield.
Had you discovered fly fishing by that point, or was that a Tassie thing that you...
No, but I was always interested in fishing in Tasmania as a kid, you know, with bait, worms, and we had a caravan down at the Tamar River, so it was Australian salmon, sort of trolling for them. Mm-hmm. And I had certainly read about fly fishing, and I do remember in those very early days making flies with seagull feathers that I found on the beach, you know. I don't remember ever catching fish trolling those, you know, seagull feathered flies, but I certainly had heard about it.
Yep.
I didn't know anything about it though. So it wasn't until I lived in Melbourne, in Fairfield, which was near Yarrabin Park, like walking distance from the park, for a kid after school with, you know, a country kid from Launceston, rural Launceston, moving into almost inner city Melbourne as a teenager, and then, you know, a broken marriage where my parents split up. I spent a lot of time, you know, with Shanghais and bloody sticks down the park at Yarrabin Park, and I found a fly casting pool. So all of a sudden, there's 50 dads at the fly casting pool want to teach me to cast.
Oh, fantastic!
And that's how it started.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I was still living in Tasmania, would I have ended up fly fishing? Maybe, probably. Might have had a teacher at school or something in Launceston, you know, introduce me to fly fishing. I don't know. But certainly to not have a father figure in my life, and then to find the Red Tag Fly Fishing Club with all these old blokes who, you know, love to teach casting. Yeah. And I could practice it every night after school. You know, someone gave me a rod. A guy called Alec Wallace gave me a rod. Jack Joyner took me on the tram to Frank O'Reilly's in those days, up in Northcote, to buy a Daiwa 233 reel, and someone else gave me a line. And I was off and racing. I was down there every night after school.
Wow. So even at that point, do you think it was your curiosity with the casting more so than the fishing?
It was with the casting.
Wow.
So there's no one to take me fishing.
Yeah.
So I was stuck in Melbourne with a mother who, you know, had to work, you know, flat out to try and keep food on the table and pay the rent. Yeah. So there's no one taking me fishing. So I spent 1 year, when I was 14, between the age of 14 and 15, I spent 1 year tournament casting at the Red Tag pool. Trying to hit the targets more often than anyone else. And in some ways, I suspect, psychologically, I was trying to prove something, prove my worth to someone who wasn't there, like a father, you know. So I put my heart and soul into hitting those targets. So by the end of a year, I could hit the targets, you know, well enough to be the Victorian Junior Champions, you know, sort of. And then finally, someone took me fishing for a day, and I could catch them because you'd see the rise, and I could chuck it there without any mucking around. Like 3 seconds, there's a fly. Yeah. Eat that. So I think it's a better way to learn fishing, and I often quote this to people. If you go and buy a rod, reel, and line from a tackle shop, Flyfisher, and you go fishing for 1 year without casting lessons or without practicing your casting, it will be a year of fishing and frustration and tangles before you catch your first fish. The other way to do it would be to learn to cast for 1 year, which is what I did. Learn line management, learn loop control, learn accuracy, learn distance, learn not to tangle, and then you go fishing on the first day, catch 8. I think that's a better deal. Yeah. You end up a better caster. Yeah. You can catch 8 the next day and the next day and the next day, whereas if you still are not a good caster, you'll catch the first one after 1 year, and then it'll take you another 4 or 5 months to catch the next one, because it's sort of more luck than good management. Yeah. Whereas my way of coming about it, luckily, was good management rather than luck.
That's interesting. Like your story actually mirrors mine pretty similarly, because I was, you know, born and raised in Deniliquin in the Riverina, where there was no fly fishing opportunity and certainly a lack of mentors that could show me much. So I reckon in my own casting, I developed as a caster on my own, and granted, I definitely picked up some errors along the way, but I feel like from the age of probably 16 to now, my casting's only 10% better. I feel like as a young man, you're good plasticine, everything is quite tactile, and you're able to figure things out on your own. So it's quite interesting that we've gone a similar path there and probably become proficient cast as well before actually looking at water.
Yeah. And look, there's a novice who can't make a decent loop and can't extend the leader and gets lucky after a year and catches a fish. Then there's someone who is a proficient caster that can make loops and just hoik it out there. And I'm thinking of someone like Jim Allen as an example, right? Jim is a good caster in that he gets the fly to the fish really quickly and catches them. But the truth of it is he's actually not a very good caster. It works. His way of doing it works, and he's done enough of it to make it work. He knows what he needs to do to get the job done. But I'd say technically he's actually not a very good caster. So for the sort of fishing he does, he gets away with it.
Yeah.
More than gets away with it, right?
Yeah.
But you take him outside that and put him on the Goulburn where he's got to get under a willow tree and then drag kicks in and, you know, because he's a lake fisherman with the wind behind him, sort of. You put him outside his comfort zone and he actually isn't a good caster because he's not well enough grounded in basic casting strokes.
Yeah.
You know, he's done it his way and that's okay. Now,
what is that next step, right? It seems to be where people actually start to understand the way the rod's bending, the way the rod's loading with a different amount of line out.
Yeah.
Where does
Just to cut you off,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it is for me, clearly, when someone learns to cast, and Anna was telling me about, Harry from Tasmania was telling me about a bloke at home, and he's self-taught.
Yeah.
And when Harry says, how did you learn? Oh, an old bloke. No, it was Anna's story. It wasn't Harry's story. Someone from the Ballarat anglers here taught him to cast, right? No, I had a mentor. This old bloke at the Anglers Club taught me to cast. Well, this bloke, when you see him cast like a bloody dog. He's got no idea. But he thinks he's a really good fisherman because the old bloke that taught him to cast all those years ago was only an average fisherman. Now, this bloke is a better caster than his mentor. So he thinks he's really good at it. And that's where the story ends. But the truth of it is, it's common in life, you don't know what you don't know. So it's only when you go fishing with someone who's represented Australia 5 times, or you go fishing with Peter Hayes, who's been to 3 World Championships, it's only when you see someone else making that shot under the tree in the Goulburn, or casting that distance into the wind, or casting to this fish when the wind's on the wrong shoulder, or doing a bow and arrow roll cast when you thought the only bow and arrow cast was a bow and arrow cast. It's that what you don't know that you don't know. So a lot of people just don't understand what different levels there are of fly fishing or fly casting. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So when I get people for casting lessons in the park, mostly they have no idea what you can do with a fly rod.
Yeah.
Just because they're not exposed to someone at that level before.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've obviously surrounded yourself with some pretty handy anglers and casters, you know, over the years. Has that played a lot of influence in the way that you both fish and instruct?
I think, of course, it has. I'm trying to get better too. I'm not just like my students that can meet me in the park for a $350 lesson. They're happy to pay $350 to try and be better at something. I'm the same. Let me tell you. 3 days ago, I was standing in the park. I was there 15 minutes before the guy. It's blowing and it's cold and it's bloody sleety here in Ballarat. And I'm trying to perfect my back cast, right? Into the wind, 30 feet, 35 feet. Anyone that looked at me casting in the park might think, wow, what a great back cast. But to me, I'm sort of looking for another level of back cast. So here I am after 50 years of moving a fly rod backwards and forwards. I am still standing in the park trying to perfect my back cast, right? 15 years ago, maybe a bit more, 18 years ago, so I'd been teaching casting for 10 or so years. I spent nearly 2 months, I spent a bit over 6 weeks in North America, travelling around North America where I'd made meetings with Lefty Cray and Joan Wolfe and Bruce Richards and so on, all the what I would think are the better casting instructors in North America, and that's where probably they've done more casting tuition than anywhere else in the world, and that's the home of the Federation of Flyfishers. I set up all these meetings with all these famous hero teachers, with a view to sucking them dry. I'm trying to find out Joan Wolf's way of teaching people to stay connected with the fly line. I'm trying to find out Lefty Cray's way of how to tighten, teach people to throw tighter loops. So yeah, I'm on the continual learning program for sure.
Yeah.
And when you came this morning, I just finished an email to my casting people yesterday. So when I cast with people, during the day, I come up with drills. Maybe yesterday's guy in the afternoon, I think there were 5 drills that I want him to practice on. And those drills focus specifically on areas of the cast that I think he would make the biggest improvements if he put some effort into practicing. And one of the quotes when I said, "G'day, Daryl, it was really nice to meet you in the park yesterday and to help you improve. One of the things I like about you is you are forever the student," in quotes. I wrote that this morning just before you came. And I think it's important to be forever the student.
Totally.
In every aspect of life.
You've got to want to learn, don't you?
Whether it's learning how to make a better coffee or learning how to make sourdough bread or learning about the AI function on your phone. We all, or being a better caster. That's how I am. I want to be better at every aspect of life, not just casting.
Yeah. So let's go back to, I guess, your origin. So you had some good mentors there at Red Tag. Fly casting became a passion for you, and then a little bit later, fly fishing. University, where are we with schooling and education?
So luckily, I did my 10,000 hours of casting at targets and at distance before I was 21. And that they say that's really important, to do the time early. So if you're 70 years old and you take up fly fishing, sort of good luck with that. But if you're 14 and you take up fly fishing with a passion, you've got a chance. So I'd become, quite a good tournament caster by the time I was 21. I'd been to 2 world championships at casting. I'd won 2 medals at distance casting at world championships. And I was pretty handy back then with a spinning rod, a plug rod, and a bait caster, and a fly rod. Everyone thinks I'm, some hero fly casting dude, but I was actually better with a spinning rod and a bait caster at world championship level. I was more successful.
Yeah.
So I did all that, and then I needed to work. So I became a mechanical design engineer and mechanical design draftsman. So I did engineering-y stuff with drawing boards in those days, not computers. And then I don't doubt that engineering type stuff and the physics and the maths of it helps me with teaching casting. So at the end of the day, we've got a weight and a lever. So the fly line is actually a weight, and we've got a bendy flexi lever, and it is just physics at the end of the day. So I don't doubt the engineering stuff helped me with that. So I did that for 10 years between sort of 20 and 30. And then my marriage at the time didn't work. And I went back to Tasmania and I thought I'd be a fishing guide for 1 season. So I bought a boat and I started guiding my way. So back then there was Bill Beck and John Fox, who sadly passed away last week. Becky's left us quite a while ago. And then I came along as the new kid on the block. So I had these old blokes who were established guides and established repeat business. And I was the new kid with the first bow mount electric in Tasmania.
Were they quite welcoming at that time?
Yeah, they were.
They didn't see you as competition?
Yep, not at all. And in fact, I remember John Fox. I rang John Fox. He was like the most prominent guide. He had a completely full book of clients that was repeat business. And they used to stay with him, and his wife did the cooking and catering. And I actually got John Fox's number from Jim Allen, actually. And I rang him and said, listen, this is what I'm going to do. I'm 32 years old, and I'm going to come to Tasmania and be a guide. And I'd love you to give me some advice about how to go about it, because this is what I'm thinking. And I'd love, your advice. You've been doing it a long time. He said, you're mad. So there's no money in it.
Yeah.
He said, it's all right for me because I'm, sort of retired and self-funded.
Yeah.
He said, I start with $200,000 a year before I turn a wheel. And that $200,000 comes from my investments. He said, I own a bank. That's what he told me. I'll never forget that. He said, I own a bank. I thought, geez, I don't know anyone who owns a bank. He actually owned a bank building that he leased to National Australia Bank. Anyway, he says there's no money in it.
Yeah.
And the only advice I'm going to give you is turn everything over on wheels every 3 years, because the environment's too harsh on gear. And if you try and keep stuff, you're going to be welding it and putting new axles.
Forever
and
fixing things.
So
Yeah.
just every 3 years, brand new. That was pretty good advice. So that's how the guiding started. I was going to have 1 year because I had a broken marriage, and I was going to go and have some time out in Tasmania.
Yeah.
So at the end of that season, I think I did 28 days work over a 6-month period, which
Right.
is nothing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Foxy's right, there's no money in it, especially when you're starting up. So I was going to go back to engineering in Melbourne, and those 28 clients all said, we're coming again next year, same dates, but make it 5 days next year, not 2. So I had to come back for another season, and then on it went.
Wow. So it just snowballed from pretty humble beginnings.
It did,
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, really, the truth of it is, if you do a good job, people want you to do that job again. If you do a crappy, shitty job, and don't pay, due respect to the clients, and they're probably not coming back to you. Back in those days too, all the guides fished. So that
So you were fishing alongside your client.
I wasn't. I was the first guide in Tasmania to not fish.
Right.
So before that, and look, people like Bill Beck, to his credit, he said, I'm not a guide, I'm a fishing companion.
Yeah.
And so he probably told you that when you rang to make an inquiry and book with him, he'd probably say, my guess, I'm a fishing companion, I'm fishing with you. So that's the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. A different sort of experience.
Yeah. But I didn't want to do that. Like, if I don't want to embarrass my clients, I've been, by then, I'd been fly fishing nearly 20 years. I'd won the Australian Championships at it 10 times. I could probably catch more fish than all my clients who are paying me money. Well,
Yeah.
how's that going to work?
Yeah, if you've caught 10 trout for the day and they've caught
none,
nothing,
or one, yeah.
it'd be pretty embarrassing.
So the other thing is too, how can you guide someone? How can you be trying to help them with their casting? How can you be spotting fish for them if you're focused on your own fly getting eaten? So, I was the first guide, to my knowledge, in the Trout Guides Association that came with a proper boat, like a sport fishing centre console boat, with a bow mount electric. The first, I had a year without it, and then bow mounts came into being, and I bought one straight away. And actually, Shane Murphy and I had the first bow mounts in Tasmania. And then I invented that stupid drogue, that the big wide sheet drogue that slows us down, because Foxy and Becky just had a little conical sea anchor.
Yeah.
So I just did it differently, and the clients appreciated the fact that I wasn't fishing, I was teaching and trying to help them catch more fish. And I had a proper boat, and they just booked again. So some of my clients now, get this, David Wyman, Ray Ferguson, they have fished with me for 31 consecutive years.
Yeah, wow.
And not just 1 week a year, they come for 2 weeks a year.
Yeah.
So they come in November and they come again in February.
Fantastic.
We are not client, relationships. This is mates. Like, I get invited to David's son's wedding, for God's sake. They get invited to my wedding. After 31 years, we know each other really, really well.
Yeah.
Peter and John Austin, another 2 people from Melbourne, 31 years.
Yeah.
So
No, it sounds like you were always very focused on delivering for your client. And I notice on your emails, I think you sign off with "expect my best." It seems like a slogan for you and your business.
And expect my best came 20 years ago. One of my clients, Lydia Lee from Sydney, some advertising, marketing, graphic design person, and she did some ads for me at the time and came up with a logo, Peter Hayes Flyfishing, and in small text beside the logo was "expect my best." And why would you want it any other way? I want repeat business. My bank manager wants me to have a full guided book. So next season is my 32nd season, and I start, next month, and I'm fully booked for the entire season. I've got a week and a bit off at Christmas time, and I've got 4 or 5 days off at Easter to be with kids and partners and stuff. But apart from that, these are all people that came last year and the year before and the year before and the year before.
Yeah.
So there's no room to book me as a fishing guide unless something terrible happens to one of my clients.
Yeah. I've seen you down there in Tassie with your clients, and as you say, they are family. Like, I feel like, you know, they're sitting around your shack table just as friends and, you know, people that obviously come and go every year, and they, when they're with you, they're included in the Myena fly fishing fabric of that community there.
Yeah.
It really is quite a unique thing that you're offering there. Have you actually stopped to think about what that is, and how did that even come about?
Yeah, I think it's that sort of generosity of spirit concept I rant about. I think fly fishing doesn't have many bogans in it, or, you know, in my fly fishing world, there aren't any bogans or dodgy, you know, cockheads. They're all good people, but from different walks of life. And so that Tyson Crescent at Myena, you know, the shack culture that goes on there with Jim Allen and his cronies, they're from all walks of life. They've got a common interest that they share, and fly fishing is definitely a leveller. So my clients too come from all sorts of professions and, you know, walks of life, but we're all there with a common thing, fly fishing. Now, because my guys come every year, everyone gets to know them. So my mates get to know my clients. My clients cross over sometimes with the next week's clients or the week before's clients, so they all get to know each other. And after 30 years, a lot of those clients become mates and then go fishing to Weipa together, as an example, or go to Alaska together in winter. Next week, I know Steve Cohen, one of my clients of well over 20 years. I taught Steve to fly fish well over 20 years ago. He said, "Oh, Dave's coming up next week with his wife." So David Hemmings is one of my guides from years ago, and he's formed relationships such that when he goes to Sydney, he's staying at Steve's house. It's common for clients from Melbourne to stay with another client in Sydney because they've become mates over such a long period of time. And it is because of that sort of generous, spirited, open door, shack culture thing that happens in Myena that everyone becomes sort of matey with each other because it's a seasonal thing. It's the same time next year. They're likely to bump into each other again.
Yeah, but it's the fact that you're in the industry full time, you're committed to it, that's enabled you to foster that kind of community. Do you see a responsibility for businesses within the fly fishing industry to try and foster that community?
I think they have to, Andrew. To be successful, if you don't foster relationships with people, it's not going to work. You know, so you know. New guide on the block comes in, they think they're going to make a big song and dance with ads in Fly Life, for instance, bigger ads, and they might attract people, but if you don't do a really good job, you know, your clients can tell if you've got a generous spirit or not. If you're just in it for the buck, and you're doing shit lunches because they're cheaper, and you're shortening up the day because you want to, you know, get home and, you know, play on the internet or something, those clients know that stuff. They know if you're putting in or not. It's really interesting. This last year has been a good year to see how that works. So last year in Tasmania, my 31st, has definitely been my worst year at catching fish, like by far. So when I started, I'd keep a diary of every fish we ever caught, every fly. I could tell you how many were caught on dries, how many were caught on nymphs and wets. I could tell you by the month what the catch rate was in December, the catch rate in January, etc. I stopped doing that maybe 20 years ago. But I can tell you this year, I don't have to have the diary statistics. This year, I'm glad I don't keep a diary because it's been terrible. You know, there were 9 or 11 days in a row where we did not catch a fish this year, right?
Yeah, hard.
Yeah, but every client that's fished with me last year for a week has booked next year for a week. Because those clients have been there, you know, 15 years ago when we were catching 20 a day at Arthur's Lake, when Arthur's was good. They know me well enough to know I'm not bullshitting them about anything. And they know times are tough this year for whatever reasons, right?
They understand fishing's fishing too.
They do.
They've done enough of it.
But get this, I'm glad I'm not the new guide who's 30 years old or 32 years old with the Flash Sport Fishing Centre console boat last year, right?
Yeah.
With the ads in Fly Life telling you how good it is, using a photo of a huge trout that you caught 5 years ago in your ad, and getting new clients in, 2 new clients, middle-aged men, professionals from Melbourne or Sydney, who are smart and not stupid. They book this new guide because they saw the ad in Fly Life. He takes them fishing and they don't catch any fish. He's not very good at teaching casting or doing any sort of personality stuff during the day. And then at the end of it, he takes their money and says, see you later. That guy is not going to get repeat business after last year's effort, right? Because there's no fish to be caught.
And he created an expectation with what he was projecting.
He did. And those blokes are probably not going to rebook. That kid is going to have to buy bigger ads next year. And in my experience, the ads have never worked for me. It's word of mouth and repeat business that works. And if that kid doesn't get that, which he's probably not going to get last year, no one would. No one would want to come back to Tasmania for another expensive hiding next year. You'd go broke. If you were me 30 years ago, last year, I'd go broke. You wouldn't build a business based on that fishery.
Yeah. Is the challenge there that the pool of people that are willing to spend what is pretty big bucks on a day's guiding, is it quite small? So you need to rely on getting that repeat clientele. There's never going to be an influx of new people all the time.
I think so. I think it probably depends on the price point of the day. But my price point, my guiding day, accommodation and meals is right up there, right? So it's way above anyone else. And I like it like that, right? I don't want to be the Kmart of fishing guides. I want to be the Rolls Royce of fishing guides. So my price point's right up there. So yep, maybe, that 20-year-olds are not my clients, right? Like a 20-year-old that's at university can't afford me. And I recognise that. But there's plenty of self-funded professional retirees that are going to die with money in the bank. So they may as well spend it along the way having a good time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make sure I give them a good time.
Yeah. How do you see the fly fishing industry here in Australia from a guiding perspective when compared to the US?
Well, that's a good question. I wouldn't like to be a guide in the US. So I've just come from Montana, where a month ago I came back from 3 weeks ago. I was in Montana for 6 weeks, and I know a lot of guides there where I go on the Madison River, and I watch them every day, and I talk to the people who own the tackle shops there that run guiding businesses. One tackle shop's got 40 plus guides that work for them. All that fishing in that area of Montana is, all guided fishing in America is river-based fishing. It's not lake-based. And so they float their clients down rivers in drift boats, which is a pretty cool thing. Looks good in photos. You could probably have a drone and take photos of that and get people back next year. But because the guides don't own the business, like me, the guides are working for a tackle shop. It's shop-based guiding, a bit like New Zealand is lodge-based guiding. So you book the lodge first and they assign you one of their guides. In America, you go to the tackle shop, or the outfitter they call themselves. You go to the outfitter and they assign you a guide, usually someone who's on university holidays over summer, and you don't know who you're going to get as a guide. You don't know what sort of skill set they are, etc. Now, when they float you down the Madison River, it actually doesn't matter how smart they are as a guide, because you've got a bobber on the end and you've got 2 tungsten nymphs and some split shot, and you're just lobbing it over the top of the boat to the other side. Those clients tip the guide if they catch a lot of fish, which is why they use that system to fish. The guides there are not going to get out on a sandbar and teach you a reach cast or a rig or mend, because it's wasting fishing time. They're going to put the bobber in the water and tell you stories about how good it was yesterday. Now, that guide probably is not going to have you come back as a repeat customer, because they're there for 1 day's fishing or 2 days fishing, and then they're going to Jackson Hole, or then they're going to somewhere else. A lot of those people that buy guides are not there for 5 days and come again next year for 5 days. They're more transient people, and you can tell by their casting, they're not proficient casters. They're just there to catch a few fish and have a nice day. Most of the boats going down the river are like that. I reckon if in 3 days' time, if I asked those clients, what was the name of your guide on Wednesday, they wouldn't actually be able to tell you the name of their guide.
Right. So it's more just churn. It's just that.
Churn them through.
Yeah.
And they, there's 200 boats a day go down the Madison River, with 2 people on them. So there's 400 people a day go through that system. And they don't care who their guide is. They ring the shop and say, can I have a guide tomorrow? Well, that's not my kind of customer, right? I don't want customers like that. And I don't want to be a guide that they can't remember your name. And I find that very often, when I come across people that have been guided in New Zealand, right, who was your guide there? Oh, I don't know his name. Like, it's common. Well, God, I hope that people will remember my name. I hope I've made enough of an impression on them in a day or 2 days or a week that they never forget my bloody name. And when they're talking to someone at their fishing club back in New York, they can say, gee, I had a great week with Peter Hayes. That's what I want them to remember, so that I get follow-up business, repeat business, as well as word-of-mouth business.
So is that just because they've gotten more than just the day's fishing? There's been a takeaway. They've got an extra little something.
Yeah,
there.
I guess so. And I think possibly what happens, and maybe this is not true of 30 years ago, but what happens now is I've been around, right? So my clients have all been around in the business world. I've been around, and they can recognise I've been around. You know someone when you meet an instructor of any sort, you know what their depth is. The example I used earlier of a casting person, I said the guy's like a mud. I said the problem with you is you're like a mudguard. And he looked at me and I said, well, you're shiny on top. It all looks good on top. It's shiny on top, but it's all shit underneath. And you can't, for people that have been around, you can't bullshit them.
Yeah.
You can't make it up. But, smart people know what sort of depth is there and whether you're bullshitting or whether you're authentic. People get that.
Yeah. Tell me being away from home, the guiding, the casting, the travel, everything. You've raised a family. You've got a couple of kids that absolutely adore you. How did you manage that aspect of it?
Yeah, I was lucky, I reckon.
Yeah.
Well, lucky and unlucky. Maybe unlucky in that I've had a marriage that hasn't worked in that whole process. But maybe lucky the marriage didn't work, actually. It depends how you look at those things. It depends. Look, I think the guiding profession is not something I would want my kids to do. I would not want my kids to go down this path. And when anyone comes to me and says this is what they want to do, I say, do you really want to do it? Because this is the problem with it. I think I personally have been really lucky. Lucky in that when I started guiding, I already had a reputation as being a very good casting person, from winning the Australian fly casting championships 10 times, and I'd won medals at fly casting internationally at world championships. So I already had a sound grounding in Melbourne, and from a fishing club perspective, I was a member of 3 clubs in Melbourne, and I was, a somewhat hero caster.
You had a good platform.
Then I went to Tasmania, where I grew up and was born, and started the guiding business. Now that year was 1994, and in 1994, or 92 I reckon, or 93, A River Somewhere came out as the TV show.
Yep.
I remember seeing it in Malvern at a theatre, and that generated a lot of interest. Peter Morse was in the middle of his Wild Fish SBS TV series, so all the fishermen were watching that. And then at the same time, Rob Stitch and Tom Gleisner were doing the River Somewhere TV show. That was sort of loosely based around fly fishing around the world, in Italy and New Zealand, America. But it was more a travel show. It was about the food in Italy while they were fishing. So that appealed to husbands and wives who were not fishermen. So in the first year of business and second year of business, everyone wanted to go fly fishing. And I don't think there was a person in my car in the first 2 years that didn't say, have you seen A River Somewhere? Or, I'm really enjoying that wild fish program. So I was lucky that I got in at the start with that sort of stuff generating interest in fly fishing in general. I was also lucky I got in at the start where I was the first guide in Tasmania that did not fish. And I had a proper fly fishing, sport fishing boat, centre console boat. I think I was lucky, right? So anyone doing it now, and in those days, of course, Jim Allen used to say Arthur's Lake, Hazy, is the brown trout factory of the world.
Yeah.
Now, he was right. We'd go take anyone fly fishing there. The way that our fishing works out of the boats with the drogues and the wind behind us, I can teach someone to cast in 15 minutes. And we catch and fish at Arthur's Lake on dry flies flat out. And of course they want to come back. Of course they want to tell their mates. So at the end of the day, I cold smoke some of the fish and I cryovac the fish in a cryovac bag and I put my business card in there just in case they give that smoked fish away to someone else. And that all makes a difference. So I did it my way. I had good fishing and I had a high level of interest in fly fishing. So I was lucky. Yeah. That's how it started. I was lucky.
Yeah, you do say luck, and sure, the timing aspect, maybe there is a little bit of luck there, but you're obviously a little bit entrepreneurial because the way that you are doing things like business cards in cryovac fish, like that's of another level. They're the little things that most guides perhaps wouldn't have thought of.
Sure.
So I think you've created your own luck there, Hazy.
Well, maybe, but nevertheless, maybe there's luck and I ran with it, So then the clients all came back and they all told their mates and the business grew very quickly. And then I put on some more guides and then it was so busy I had to have a PA, for God's sake. I had to have a girl come in for 4 hours a day, so 20 hours a week. She came in every morning from 9 till 1 and it was busy. And then slowly I tapered it off to now, 30 years on, it's just me. So the buck stops here. No more guides, no more PAs, no more of that, but a higher price point because there is just me.
Was it the people management aspect of it that became all too challenging when it did?
Yeah, and when you've got a lot of guides, and maybe I'm too generous with how much I pay my guides, but I want to look after my guides. I want them to come back and be able to do this next year. And I recognise it's a seasonal job. They have to be rewarded really well over a short period of the year to want to come back and do it next year. You can't take $800 a day and give your guide $100 a day. You can't do that.
Do you regret actually building it up past the point of being just yourself?
No, I don't. No. It's just something I did at the time. Yeah. Whether you say it's entrepreneurial or not, whether I was trying to make more money or not, I don't know. Those guides were my friends. They were good friends, and we were a team, like a family of guides. We were a team. And there were a lot of clients in those days that wanted guiding. So it was either I supply guides that are good quality guides that do it, the way we do it, or they go and take potluck with God only knows out of a fishing magazine ad. So that's just how it was. But I did realise over time. There's no money in it running. It looks good when I've got 7 guides. And in February, we're out every day, 7 of us. And we're talking on radios and it looks good. But at the end of the day, I'm paying them a lot of money and there's not that much left in it for me when you've got to pay a PA to administer the whole thing. Because I still want to guide. I don't want to be the PA. Yeah. But anyway, it's how it was. And I have managed to put 2 kids through, private school, although it's Steiner School. It's the private school. And I've managed to pay the mortgage and I've managed to, end up with a Toyota Land Cruiser. And that was always, the goal was to afford a Toyota Land Cruiser like John Fox. Now, I can't afford to...
Who owned the bank. Yeah.
Who owned the bank. I can't afford to change it every 3 years like Foxy did. I do understand what he's talking about. He just gets out of warranty. The car's still got good low mileage and he turns it over and gets a new one. Well, I'm sitting on this for 7 years. Here we are. And... so I'm not quite at Foxy's stage, but I have paid the way and I've been successful as a guide and a casting instructor, and I've made products and sold drogues and all sorts of stuff along the way. I don't think my son can do this job. So the environment's degrading around us. The ability to have 20 fish days on Arthur's Lake has gone forever. Fly fishing now if my son wanted to do this job, he's got to do some sort of Millbrook Lakes type private fishery deal, in my opinion. I don't think he could have 2 kids through private school, pay the mortgage and upgrade the car based on the public fishery. That's what my crystal ball says.
Yeah, it's a bit sad, isn't it, when you talk about it just being the environment that's the main inhibitor.
It's very sad.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a fact of life. This is progress, right? So it's how it is. Like the environment isn't getting any better. So in the 31 years that I've been out every day in summer fishing in trout water, clean, clear, cold water, the graph is a downward slanting graph. It is not getting better anywhere.
Yeah, I guess it is worth pointing out, that you can still get great fishing in Tassie. How do you adapt when the fishing is that bit tougher with a client?
We stay home and teach the client how to make sourdough bread. No, seriously, if I know it's going to be a really, really hard day, and we're more likely to catch fish in the afternoon, for instance, we're not going out in the morning. We're staying in the distillery, bottling some gin, for the bloke to take home, or I'm teaching him how to tie flies, or we are actually doing sourdough bread, because the client is forever the student too, same as me. I think that's what happens. Bill Beck always attracted clients that were like him. Peter Hayes probably attracts clients that are like him. I like making sourdough bread. What's not to... And those clients, they go back to their house in Melbourne or Sydney with the starter and they make their wife bread.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with fishing.
Yeah, just another little takeaway from a guiding experience with
So
Daisy.
we're not selling fish, and just as well, because the last few years have been really hard. So we're selling that culture that you were talking about before. They're part of the family. They know everyone. We'll go and have coffee at Jim Allen's shack, and they meet someone they met there last year, and all those people know don't race out because the afternoon's going to be better, and you're just going to wear yourself out.
Yeah.
Or I'll be out on the pond teaching casting.
Tell us a bit more about Hazel and Brumbys there and what you've got that set up.
Yeah, so it's a building on lease. It's got 22 beds in it. So there's 11 bedrooms with 2 beds in each bedroom. And there's a big conference room at the end. So it's an ideal classroom with a whiteboard that takes up half the wall. So I can draw pictures on the whiteboard, which really helps in teaching. And it's got a big commercial kitchen, and very often if there's half a dozen people there, we always end up in the kitchen, sitting on the benches, drinking red wine while, someone's cutting up pizza ingredients. Someone else is, doing the apple crumble. Because there's only just me to do the catering. And all these people have learnt over the years, if you rely on Hazy to set the table, to chop up the pizza stuff, to make the apple crumble, you're going to have a late night. So they automatically, someone sets a table, someone will chop up the veggies for the pizzas, someone else will...
They all pitch in.
They all pitch in.
Yeah,
so it's become... Hugh Beggs once said to me, he says, Hazy, this is the best run boarding school in the country. That's what he said. And I do get that, it's sort of like that.
It's such a great facility there with the pond and the bedrooms, and you've named each bedroom in that place as well. You seem to have a real respect for the people that have been and gone in the fly fishing industry, or identities that have had some kind of impact in fly fishing. What's that all about?
So I've always been interested in collecting fly fishing stuff, and I'm not collecting stuff that came out this year, that's for sure, right? This is collecting stuff from times gone by. And I've read lots and lots of fly fishing books and literature about the history of fly fishing in Australia. And I guess I've actually been around long enough to know a lot of the people that were involved in those early years. So I always had it in my mind that I would do some sort of fly fishing museum-y type deal to try and educate, people that come and stay. So the 11 rooms have got 11 different names on them. There's the Gillies room, there's the Wigram room, there's the Skulls room, there's a Christensen room, etc. And each room, when you go into it, has got stuff on the walls about Max Christensen or about David Scholes or, so on. So it's a bit of a learning place, an educational place. So I want people to know about, a dunny brush fly that, and where it came from. So I've put nearly 18 years, I think I've been there, nearly 20 years now I've been in that building. And it is my version of a fly fishing sort of museum, but functional in terms of the classroom, the casting pools, the kitchen and so on. And it's on the edge of Brumbys Creek, which was once one of the best fisheries in Australia, and sadly it's not so much now. But that's what that's about. Now, interestingly, about 2 years ago, I had the Sydney Fly Rodders Club come down. So this is a club in one of the two major clubs in Sydney. And there were about a dozen or 14 people. And they were a variety of ages. And certainly some were beginners and intermediate sort of anglers. So I didn't guide any of them because I'm booked with my clients, but they can use the building. Cool. So the club comes down, I do them a deal based on a lot of people, and they're self-catering. I don't have to cook them dinner. In fact, I don't have to be home. So I might be somewhere else. I might be up at my shack in the Highlands while there's 14 people in my fishing lodge, right? Anyway, I'm there for dinner one night with a client, and we're all sitting down for dinner, and someone asked me about a photo on the mantelpiece. It's a photo of Max Christensen. I said, as a matter of interest, does anyone know who Max Christensen was? No. Not one person in the room had ever heard of Max Christensen, right? Now, as I understand it, Max Christensen was one of the first ever Australian fly tyers that realised we shouldn't be just using flies imported from England because our bugs ain't from England, right? We got different bugs and we should copy our bugs instead of using English Jock Scots and flies. So that's pretty significant, that some person, well before my time, but a person in Tasmania realised we should actually tie our own flies to copy our bugs.
Yeah.
Anyway, and on I could go about Max Christensen. So I thought, I wonder how much these people know. So I went through the rooms. I said, Gillies. Who's in the Gillies room? There are a couple of blokes in the Gillies room. There's two twin singles in there. Does anyone know who Malcolm Gillies was? Not one person knew anything about Malcolm Gillies. Like, man, oh man. Gillies was one of the major influences in fly fishing tackle and fly fishing and casting in Australia's history. And no one knew who he was or what he's renowned for. So on and on I went. I went down through all these rooms. I said, Scholes. What about Scholes? Who's in the Scholes room? Anyone tell me anything about David Scholes? Someone said, did he write a book? Did he write a book? I think he's written 15 books, right? And a beautiful writer and a major player in fly fishing in Australia. So all the room names are named after people who I believe have made a serious contribution to fly fishing in Tasmania. And of course, my bedroom's called the Hayes. It's got Hayes written on the door. And I'd like to think at the end of the day, I've made a contribution in Tasmania in terms of changing how people guide and certainly the casting instruction and the provision of Hayes on Brumbys as a venue for major fly fishing events.
Yeah.
So, when Simon Gorsworth comes, I get him to Hayes on Brumbys and we have a weekend with Simon Gorsworth. When April Vokey comes, we have a weekend, etc. So I think the lodge has been this meeting point, the central sort of coming together for cane rod making. Over the years, I've imported 4 different cane rod makers from around the world to do events at Cressy. I have imported people like April Vokey and Heather Hodson to do women's events at Cressy. People like Simon Gorsworth and Tim Rajeff have come and stayed at Cressy to do stuff. And I'd like to think that at the end of the day, I'm renowned for, having a crack anyway.
Oh, bloody oath.
At trying to make people aware of fly fishing and what.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think without you and without that facility, that it would be very hard for those identities, those global identities, to come to Tasmania in the same way and have a platform, a place where they can actually educate.
Yeah. And there is a difference when those people are there and we're all drinking beers or gin and tonics, as it happens, in the kitchen, and all the clients and the punters are there too. It is a facility that provides an opportunity to come together as like a family or mates in a common environment.
It feels like home. Yeah,
it's not like the international guest is staying in the hotel in town and everyone else is in Airbnbs scattered around the place. It is the sort of place people are very happy to put their feet up on the coffee table, and that's what I want. I'm not a 5-star kind of guy. I say to people, when people ask me what's a lodge, I'd like to tell you it's a half-star lodge, right? But sometimes we're eating quail at night and crayfish, mornay. You wouldn't know what we're going to eat. I don't know from day to day what we're going to eat. Depends what's in the freezer and what we feel like. We're a half-star lodge, but we eat really well. I've never charged anyone for a gin and tonic ever in 15, 16, 17 years of business there. But we do provide 5-star fishing tuition for sure. That's what I can do. I can't provide 5-star accommodation and, there's no cleaner. If you don't vacuum my bloody hallway while I'm cooking breakfast, the hallway's going to be dirty.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it is. And clients are happy to do that. Clients are happy. The vacuum cleaner stands up in the hallway.
Yeah.
And I hardly have to vacuum, right? Clients just pick it up when they see the need.
Oh, the whole place is just so welcoming, as you say, it's a bit of a home away from home for these people.
Yeah, and someone needs to do that. Hey, there's no one else around Australia doing that sort of thing.
It transcends the business aspect of it, though. I think it's not, you haven't created that environment because you're trying to build the bank balance. That's something that really is just about fostering that community and bringing like-minded fly fishers together. As you say, the different personalities in fly fishing and seeing your clients down there, it is there's not one of them that you wouldn't want to spend a day with. They're all just great people in their own right that have their own story to tell. Yeah,
no, that's true. At the moment, one of my mates who knows a lot of these clients, right, a local guy who knows a lot of these clients because he's been a mate of mine for 30 years. I taught him to fly fish, and he's got a shack in the Highlands, and he knows these clients. They all know each other. He's putting together a trip to go overseas fishing for a couple of weeks next year. And it's really hard for him to work out who to invite, right? We've got sort of 8 seats or seven or 8 seats on that trip. It's really hard for him to know who to invite because there's so many of those people he'd like to invite. And you're right. You want to spend time with these people. They're all really good people. Years ago, I remember talking about Michael Yule to someone.
Yeah.
And I said to him, and I'd never thought about this, but the reason I really like Michael Yule, who was one of the sort of grandfathers of fly fishing, and there is a Yule room at Cressy as a matter of interest. It's not named after Michael, but it's named after his great-great-grandfather. Michael Yule, the reason I really like Michael Yule, who passed away at 96 just this year, early this year, the reason I always like Michael Yule, he has 2 attributes that I think are really, really important. He is, 1, forever the student. So as much as he's old, I remember him ringing me one day saying, Peter, he might have been 85, Peter, are you home? I'll come around. I said, all right, what for, Michael? He said, I need a hand with my iPad. I'm having trouble logging on to ComSec. And there's something I'm missing here. So here's an 85-year-old with an iPad, for God's sake. And he's having a crack, right? He is forever the student.
Yeah, that's cool.
The second attribute is he has what I call a generous spirit. He's got generosity of spirit in spades. So going back 15 or 20 years, the first brand new car I had was a Nissan, and it was a diesel car. And I'd had it about a month, and Michael Yule walked in my driveway, and he might have been 74 or 5 years old back then. And I saw him coming in through the front gate. He's carrying a yellow jerry can, right? I thought, what's he got a bloody yellow jerry can for? So he came in, he said, I bought you a present. I said, Michael, I've got jerry cans. I've got like 500 jerry cans. He said, I bet you haven't got a yellow one. I said, I haven't. Mine are red and black. He said, well, they're for petrol. Yellow is for diesel. Green is for two-stroke. And red and black is for unleaded. I never knew that. Now, he gave me a jerry can.
That's great.
For no reason other than he knew I had a diesel car and he guessed I wouldn't have a yellow jerry can.
Yeah, what a legend.
So what's not to like about someone like that?
Yeah, bloody oath. Yeah, no, he'll be sorely missed.
Yeah.
Certainly have lost quite a few people up in the Highlands there in recent years. Billy Beck, you mentioned there before, and Foxy more recently. Do you see how are things going to be more long term in Moana? Do you think that social fly fishing fabric is going to continue to the next generation?
Yeah, that's interesting. Hey, that's a good question. I have thought about that in the past, and I suspect it won't. Other people I've talked to about it think it will, but it'll just evolve in a different way. You know, those guys were old school. That's when there were things called manners and respect around. And the young generation, you know, and I'm not saying there's no manners and respect amongst the young generation. I'm not stupid, and my kids have got manners and pay respect. But the young generation is definitely different than those guys. I think the kids these days wear their bloody hat inside, like you, right?
Yeah.
Is it going to rain? No, we're inside, right? Are you going to get sunburnt? No, we're inside. But you've got a bloody peak cap on, right? Worse might be if the kid came in wearing the hat backwards, right? Because I'm a bit old school too. Like I'm not old school as Jim Allen or Don Urquhart or those guys, but I sort of don't get wearing a hat backwards inside, right? Now those kids, are they going to have that same culture? Maybe it's different, maybe it's a younger person's culture that I don't fit into. And it's unreal or unrealistic of me to think that the young kids that are growing up with those buzzy, what are they, drones, right? Drones and YouTube and that AI thing. AI used to be artificial insemination, right? And now it's something everyone's got on their phone. So I'm old school too, and maybe it's unreasonable for me to think that they should fit into our old sort of fly fishing culture that has been developed at Moana over these years. And if you could get rid of all us old cronies, in one go, give the young guys a crack, maybe you go around to someone's shack and there's that loud doof doof music and everyone's got hats on backwards and maybe they're watching YouTube videos in the corner instead of framing old Dunnybrush flies from Julian Brown. I don't know, it's just different. So maybe there is going to be a fly fishing culture evolve.
I think people have kind of lost that ability to tell stories in a way too, haven't they? Like guys like Jim and Don Urquhart and all those guys were just great at storytelling and like really holding court around the dinner table.
They can tell stories because they're old and they've had a lifetime of developing stories, creating stories, whereas the younger people, newer to fly fishing, younger in experience at life, haven't got the stories yet to tell. So it's not like they can't tell stories or don't tell stories. They just haven't got them yet, I suspect. And maybe when this new generation of fly fishermen that have all got super high-powered nano titanium bloody fly rods, maybe when they're 40 or 50 or 60 years old, and they've moved from camping, sleeping in their car to actually funding a shack and having a base, there will be stories, and it's just different stories.
Yeah, I guess the thing that's going to remain constant is that desire to learn and that desire to catch more fish. And in a way that does bring fly fishermen together to compare notes and chew the fat, because everyone wants to know how they went that day. How was Woods? How was Botsford? They want to know.
Yeah. I reckon too though, one day, and I can't believe how much of a dinosaur I am. I mean, when I'm working up at the lakes, yep, you meet someone at the servo and you ask that, or you drop in for a gin tonic and you find out. The day will come where the damn success of everyone's day is uploaded from drone photos on Facebook before they even get back to the ramp. So, you know, if you're in that clicky chat group thing on Marketplace or whatever, you young people, Facebook, you probably find out without even talking to anyone what's going on, you know.
Sure.
The Ballarat here is one example. I've just rejoined the Ballarat Club after like 30 years of being a member. And they've got, you know, one of the most active Facebook groupie messenger things you've ever seen. Like, you know, and I'll tell you every day there's like 15 messages.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're not meeting and, you know, in someone's shack finding out what fly they caught this or that on.
Yeah.
The damn photos are popping up on rulers, what they call brag mats, for God's sake.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a whole new world. Hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
I do worry that the environment's being degraded. And I said to a mate back home about 5 years ago, name one waterway that we fish that's actually got better in the last 20 years.
It's a struggle.
Couldn't think of any. The guy came back to me 4 or 5 days later and said, look, I think the Meander River has got better in the last 20 years, and the Mersey River. Now, I think I've got to give him that because they built dams on them and there is a riparian flow instead of drought and too much water extraction. So, yep, I think those two rivers in Tasmania have got better in my 31-year tenure as a guide. But if you want to look at the other side of the ledger, you want to have a long bit of paper for me to write the ones that have tipped over and got worse. So this is sad to me, and that's why I said earlier, I don't think my son can do my job in the future unless it's a private fishery with managed waterways and stocked fish.
Do you think the issue there is that as fly fishers we are too few in number, so when it comes to management or trying to improve waterways, we just don't have the power?
Yep, for sure. That's definitely the case. So, and the other problem, how's this for a story? About maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was at the Lake Field Day open weekend where they've got the trout spawning and you can walk across their backs. You know, it's really impressive to see all the trout coming out of the Great Lake. And I'd implore anyone who's interested in this stuff, go to Tasmania that weekend. Like a ticket from Melbourne costs nothing. It would be $80 or something. Go to Tasmania and go up to Lake and watch the spawning run weekend. It is really, really impressive to see that volume of beautiful big fish coming up to spawn. Anyway, I'm at the Lake weekend. I was teaching casting to kids there. And at lunchtime, I was talking to the Director of Inland Fisheries and his sidekick. So this is John Diggle, the director, and his sidekick at the time was a guy called Tony Wright, business manager. And I said to them, I said, listen, boys, my crystal ball, and I've got a crystal ball, I look into it every now and then. My crystal ball says that in the future, inland fisheries' job is not to work out how many fish to stock into Botsford. Your job is not to work out which should be an artificial fly-only water or artificial lure water. Your job is not to decide what the size limit or slot limit is at East Rocky, right? Your job in the future has to be to fight vehemently with the hydroelectricity department. And when you're not fighting hydro, you should be fighting tooth and nail with Forestry Tasmania. And when you're not fighting those two, you've got to just put the gloves on and you've got to whack it into Farmers and Graziers Association. Because these are all opponents, if you like, of fly fishing environment. So John Diggle, I will never forget, laughed. And John's got this little chuckle, ha 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 ha, laugh. Tony Wright just looked at me like I'm an idiot with some bullshit crystal ball. And John Diggle said, that will never happen, Peter. I said, it's going to have to happen. I've seen it in my bloody crystal ball, mate. And he said, it'll never happen because very often we share the same minister. That's what he said to me. He said often the Minister for Hydro is the Minister for Fisheries. It's the same minister.
Wow.
So that was a dozen years ago, right? Fast forward to 3 years ago, and we had a guy who is a fly fisherman, I must say, as our minister. So he was the Minister for Hydro, he was the Minister for Forestry Tasmania, and he was the Minister for Agriculture, Department of Primary Industry, Water and Environment, and he was the Minister for Fisheries. Now, what's going to happen if you did, as an angler, have any power, or your fishing club or 5 fishing clubs in Tasmania had any power at all, you go to the Fisheries Director and say, listen, Woods Lake is being drawn down too low and they're pouring shit water out of Arthur's Lake, contaminated algal bloom water out of Arthur's into Woods, and you need to stop it. Oh, and by the way, they're starting to cut down trees on the edge of Woods Lake, flat out, like they're clear fell on the edge of Woods Lake. And if we do get a rain event, it's going to silt up the lake. And there's no environment for the gum beetles anymore, etc., etc. You say, oh, righto, yeah, I hear you. So is he going to go into the meeting with his minister, the forestry bloke, the hydro bloke, and the farmers and graziers who need the water drawn out? The minister's going to laugh at him. Sorry, can't do much about that.
Yeah.
The farmers have got this huge infrastructure in the lowlands with pivot irrigators. They're locked into contracts with, major companies. They need the water. Like, we can't shut down farming in Tasmania because of a few fishermen. Haven't you got somewhere else to go? Can't you go to that other lake? What's that? The Great Lake. Go over there.
Yeah.
Take your people over there.
Yeah. So that's been the attitude, hasn't it? Like, we'll just move the fishermen around. Oh, we'll put a few more fish into penstock. That'll make them happy for a bit.
So Guy Barnett was the minister, Liberal Party minister, and he was the minister for all those things, and he is a fly fisherman, right? And what can he do? Done nothing.
His hands are tied.
Mike Stevens said to him some years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, they were at the opening, maybe a bit longer than that. They were at I think it was the opening, maybe it wasn't the opening, but it was a function at Thousand Lakes Lodge, right up in the Highlands in the 19 Lagoons area. And he said to Guy Barnett, oh, Guy, I feel like I need a poo. Oh my God, I need a poo. Where's the nearest public toilet? Right? This is the Minister for Fisheries, right? Guy looks at him like he's an idiot, of course. Well, where is it? Where's it? I'm a fisherman. I'm up here, fly fishing. I need a poo. Where's the nearest public toilet? Couldn't tell him, right? So the nearest public toilet's like 22 kilometres away at Myena, right? Oh, what about Penstock? Is there a public? Oh, no, there's not one at Penstock. So, here we are, the Minister for Fisheries and the Fisheries Department, and there's no public toilets anywhere in the Highlands except at the shop in Myena. Are they really looking after fishermen here?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
A World Heritage Area. Yeah.
So Mike was trying to embarrass him, and it did work because the World Fly Fishing Championships were coming the next year in 2019 or 2020 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And there's not a single public toilet for all these international teams, right, that are going to come and practice on all these waters. And they built toilets all over the place, which is fantastic.
Yeah, thank goodness.
But why weren't they there before? You know, are we happy to have people shitting in the bush on the edge of our lakes? Toilet paper blowing around the place.
Yeah. No, it's Oh, at least we got there in the end.
We got there in the end. This is progress, Andrew.
Yeah.
But the list. If I wrote a list of waters that have been degraded in my time, there'd be things like Lagoon of Islands and stuff. Like, those old guys, Becky and Jim Allen and in his day and Foxy, they would tell you that was the best trophy 10-pound rainbow trout dry fly fishery in the world. Yeah. And just tipped over. Yeah. Lake Sorell, one of the fish factory, of Australia, tipped over. In my time, Arthur's Lake tipped over. Yeah. And on and on it goes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it just seems...
Brumbys Creek. I leased a building for 30 years. I've leased that lodge on the edge of Brumbys Creek because it was one of Australia's premier blue ribbon trout fisheries, and it's been degraded in the last 10 years with siltation and hydro's water flow regime. And it's I don't think I actually fished it last year, and it's 100 metres from my door.
Wow. Yeah.
Not worth fishing.
Yeah. No, it's sad, isn't it?
It is sad.
Yeah. Yeah. After chatting with Hazy and hearing his concerns about the future of the Tasmanian trout fishery, and also questioning why it was that I was wearing a hat inside, I was keen to get things on a more positive track and see what knowledge we could suck out of someone that's been doing it for so long at such a high level. In this next part of our two-part series, we're going to be talking to Peter about how you can improve as a fly caster and also dive into the future of rod design. We hope you enjoy.